Hello, and welcome to Encounter Roleplay and to Inquisitor, our Mutants and Masterminds 40k show, returning for Season 2. It's going to be a Session 0, so you'll get a good chance to meet all the characters if you haven't joined us before. Hello to those of you who are watching live on Twitch, and if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to join us live for the show every Monday, 2 p.m. EDT for the live show. So, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves and see how everyone is doing, who we are, and who we're playing. Let's start with the wonderful Just Jason, please.
Oh, thank you. As Charlie said, I am Just Jason, please, on Twitter, Jason in real life, hi. And I am so excited to be a part of Inquisitor Season 2, returning as the victorious Vasily Taltos, an incinerant of imminent grace and intelligence and just all manner of positive attributes. Honestly, he's wonderful. He's not wonderful. It's terrible. He's garbage. But nevertheless, I enjoy playing him, and I'm gonna enjoy the prospect of introducing him as Season 2 progresses. So yeah, hope you'll keep watching.
He's an incinerant, so he's hot garbage.
Exactly. Hey, wait a minute.
He's literally a trash fire.
Now, hold on, wait.
Speaking of the exact opposite of a trash fire, Clerical Cord, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Hi, I'm Kat. I'm at Cleric of Cord. Last season, I played Sifenia Grigori, a Sister of Battle, Order of Our Martyred Lady, who, at the end of the season, martyred herself? Something like that. She did her duty. Let's put it that way. And is now at the bottom of a lake of acid. Yeah, she took out trash, not the burning trash, but the other trash, and appears to be
trash.
Yes. Sorry, she's now sitting at the bottom of a lake of acid. So, yeah, things are going.
I think F's in chat for the wonderful Sifenia, who, by the look of your nameplate, is not coming back right now. But more about that, I'm sure, as we get into Session 0. How are you doing, Pope World Build?
Well, back from a prolonged vacation. Good to be back. Pope World Build here over on the Twitter, World Build on the Twitch, playing a very changed Kifkin Severus Dracon. After what happened at the end of last season, he is still trying to find himself, whatever this self is.
Yeah, you were given an interesting promotion, right? Is that a fair way to describe what happened?
I like to actually go and use something from 40k that I have heard quite often. A promotion is not a good thing in the far future. A promotion usually is a form of punishment.
And why don't I hand over to our number one Punisher, Bastian? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm already thinking of how to update your titles. So let's see when that comes through. Yeah, doing great. I just came back from a weekend of not tabletop role-playing, but live action role-playing, which was very fun. You can see it by the sunburns on my face, light burns. Had a lot of fun, a lot of inspiration, and looking forward to this season. Last season ended on an epic encounter with a nice sacrifice, and took some hints from the Q&A to see to take the season on, and hope you had a think on that as well. So yeah, and you? How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm very excited to see what we come back to and what has changed since the last time we were with these characters. Has been quite the gap. Yeah, I'm very interested to see how we continue on our search to root out heresy And I'm pretty sure that the cast are going to really push this season for us to blow up a planet. I think it's on the wish list. People just really want to make a planet go boom, right?
Why not?
Yeah, maybe.
Duke
So
it from above. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah.
Before we make planets go boom, and before we dive into maybe a recap of last season and dive into our session 0, I'd like to talk about a few of our sponsors today. Fantasy Grounds, of course, is our virtual tabletop of choice. All of the maps, maybe not today, and roles that you see are using Fantasy Grounds. They have a wonderful Kickstarter going on right now to update all of their engines. Go and check that out. There's a lot of cool stuff coming in with the Unity engine. You can also get all of your miniatures, board games, war games, and more from Wayland Games. Go to waylandgames.co.uk and get yourself a huge array of things for up to 20% off that regular retail price. And of course, our sponsors, Tabletop Loot, who sell incredible dice. Prop. When we hit 20 retweets today, we will give you a chance to win a set of dice. So keep an eye out for that in chat. You can also support the show by hitting that retweet button. And if you want to interact with the show today, there are, of course, ways to donate, including Net 1s, Net 20s, Wild Magic Surges. And I'm going to leave in that table of pets because Will hasn't told me otherwise. So keep an eye out for those. Keep an eye also on the GoFundMe, which does support Will and Sid's immigration fund. It's very expensive for them, and they're working towards their new life together. So huge support for them, please. And of course, if you see a moment that you enjoy a lot, something funny, something shocking, something ridiculous, hit the clip button. We like watching those things back and making funny GIFs and highlight reels. Without further ado, though, I'm going to hand you back to Bastian, and we will get into this Inquisitor Warhammer 40k Mutants and Masterminds game stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Today we'll be going over some wrap-up of last season and the transition into the current season. But before we do that, I want to go back a step and tell you the house rules we're using and the system we're using. We're using Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition, which is normally a superhero focused game, but it is a pretty much open build your own character system. It's not so lethal, so the house rules we're using make it more lethal to match the Warhammer 40k universe. The first of which is that normally when you roll against damage to try to survive it, it takes quite some time to be worn down, so the consequences are a lot more severe, making you go down faster, making combat shorter, more deadly. The second one is that we're playing humans, not superhumans, meaning that anything you add to your character which is not which is above the peak of human physicality has to be technology or psychic powers. And the last one, actually the last one of the old set, because we're adding 2 today, is that they can get any equipment they want because they belong to the Inquisitors, which are basically the highest command in terms of requisitioning tools and armies. But if they want to use it every episode, they need to buy it with the point system. So if they want to get something just for to solve one problem, they can roleplay to get it. And if they want to keep it, they have to pay for it. The new rules we're adding this season is the first one is normally you would get hero points, which allow you to do incredible things, save you from dying, and they regenerate every session. But we're changing that to not regenerate at all the hero points. They have to earn them back by either tagging complications, which are written down downsides or upsides to your character, which can put you in bad situations. So they have to deal with it in character. And the other, that's the last one I added, actually, I think. Because the luck one, the luck one is pretty much already was like that per story. It resets per story. So at the start of the story, you're all starting at 2 hero points, as you would normally, but they don't regenerate. So you have to think a lot more wisely about when you're using them, because when they're gone until you earn them back. If the four of you, did you have any questions about those that came up last season? No. Then, because I will just skip to my next part, which is today. The schedule for today will start out with a short recap of last season, which will be done by the players. After that, we'll do a short round of characters, what they have done in the meantime in transit since leaving the last planet, followed by an intro of any new characters, which is Cleric of Court, who will be playing a new character, which we will do in game actually. And after that, you get to discuss where you want to go, how you want to proceed, and follow the leads you have or explore new leads. What have you done? Oh yeah, and I had 2 questions for the group, and I hope you answered them. So the first question about last season, we'll do that after the recap because it makes more sense. Do we have a volunteer for the start of the recap?
Sure.
Got one.
So, at the start of last season, the Inquisitor Matilda and her retinue were going after a particular series of cultists, tracking them down to one planet. There was a quick and brutal confrontation as to a purple man who was disposed of. But upon a autopsy, found a small purple sliver of metal embedded in his neck, along with the bodies having odd acid burns. This led to this planet in this Hirata system. I believe the Thalanum system, Thalanum 3, where most of last season took place. But in getting to Thalanum, the navigator of the Emperor's Son, the ship the Inquisitor holds, met with an untimely end and left everyone stranded in the Thalanum system. Searching out what heresy was to be found on Thalanum, the Inquisitor met with and, over time, befriended Sergeant Donnie, an Arbites of the local constabulary. Through a number of plays as a rogue trader, Matilda and her retinue investigated the planet, where a good portion of the group split up. Particularly Vasily found his way into trouble, as he often does, and impersonating a worker who may have just been recently on planet or have been there for a while, story kept changing, of Publius. He confronted the local workers' union, where he made a bit of a fuss as a means to find out more information. Meanwhile, Matilda and Kifkin, in the persona of Antonius Daniker, rogue trader at large, they were given a series of tours, including a tour of Refinery 5, which had 237 workers. Also giving a meeting with Governor Malik, a noble who seemed consigned with being on his way out, living his last few days on this Emperor-forsaken planet that refines acid to be used in batteries for the greater Imperium. And Inspector Joseph, who was giving the tour and met with an untimely end after Kifkin had him try and investigate what the sliver was, throwing himself into a pool of acid. That was fun. Through further investigations, particularly by Safenya, using Vasily as a captured problem, investigated the local Arbites, finding David, Donnie's primarily handler, to be a strange man. Something off about him. Her using her Emperor-given powers to read people, and something was off. Also, well, she had Publius, Vasily, booked and sent off to prison, where Vasily made
a true highlight.
Where Vasily made friends with
A top
Max.
leader decision was made.
Yes, and Vasily made friends with Max by taking his eye and being knocked unconscious. Shortly thereafter, Max conspired with this Publius, this Vasily, on this thing, having somehow made friends while in the recovery room. Max seemingly being a part of some larger criminal endeavor. And as part of their escape, explosion happened over at the Union offices, the same time that a beloved figure, the head of the Union, Elijah, was set to have a speaking engagement to the public. It went up big, the entire thing, and started a riot throughout the capital. And as this was going on, Vasily continued to insinuate himself in the criminal underbelly of this planet, meeting with a Cornelius, someone who most definitely had a hand in the first set of cultists leaving this planet. Made friends and was sent off with a huge brute named Fox to make a delivery to Site 77. Meanwhile, during this riot, slipping past a few individuals, a series of unfortunate events happened, including the uncalled for destruction of a number of civilian vehicles, some of which ended up becoming craters. But with all due haste in using her powers, Matilda managed to ferret out what was going on, communicate with Vasily, and plan a new course of action, which all headed on to route Site 77, where at a bridge junction there was a confrontation as the group of the inquisitorial group met back up with Vasily, still maintaining his cover as Publius, blocking off the truck that he was driving. Fox turned into a meaty paste, stroganoffing the entire interior of the bridge. So that was fun. And was found out that the cargo that he was smuggling were a number of unconscious individuals, and hidden beneath them, the bed of the truck, was a bomb of significant size, and potency. Removing the unconscious people into their transport, the Inquisitorial group followed Vasily, now in a torn-up vehicle, as they made their way to Site 77, where there was a meeting with a lot of local Arbites at the site. Strange. And going deeper, met with an individual named Eva, where Vasily and Sofenia made a dramatic confrontation with her, which resulted in a number of cultists dying, and the unveiling that Thalanum had within its ruins ancient and not really that investigated, something of Xenos properties. Something was terribly wrong. Something was sealed here on Thalanum 3. But then there was the figuring out that there is another site that the cultists were interested in investigating, Site 75. Before heading there, went off to a factory, the entire group licking their wounds from the previous endeavor and trying to make sense of it all and plan their next step. There, at the site, as Vasily was being patched up, and Sofenia was requisitioning more weapons, Matilda and Donnie began getting closer in their relationship, as well as some of the secrets of the Inquisitorial group leaking further and further out, for Donnie to understand just how deep the rabbit hole was going. Then came the confrontation at Site 75. Many Arbites, sent by David no less, whilst the city was in uproar with the riots, had made their way to Site 75 as an escort for something or someone. Upon further inspection, there was a great number of the prisoners. It seemed like the entire local prison had been emptied, and those individuals deposited for some sort of horrific chaos cultist ritual, where they were all sent into a frenzy, seeking to destroy each other, and their blood pooling on the floor of this Xenos structure hidden within Site 75. And in said confrontation, well, cultists have manner of means to summon things, especially when blood was spilt. And our demon, a bloodletter, was summoned. As Sofenia and Vasily were cutting down cultists, until they observed Kifkin, who had taken to naming the bomb a present or package, decided to just set it off in the corner with a timer and then run. So there was a great fleeing as Matilda had come to realize that this place was going to go up in fire one way or another. And Sofenia saving Vasily and pulling a retreat as the demon had been slain, the cultist slain, and then a great fiery collapse on the interior of Site 75. Seeing that David was definitely a link and up to no good, and not much aside from Sofenia seeing right before she left at the center of all of this cult activity, there was a sepulchre, a tomb, that which had opened and revealed a helmet of unknown origin, purplish in color. But now that that had been buried in the rubble, and also significantly wounded, and needing to get back to the capital, they made their way back one last time to that factory to lick their wounds, to plan the next attack, patching up Vasily's significant hurt at this point. And then trying to get anything on any form of communications, finding out that most local communications have been cut for reasons unknown to the local populace. They took one last rest and then headed south back to the capital. On the way, we find that the party has an interesting curse. That is to flip or trip up, impound, crash any vehicle that they seem to find. And as part of this significant crash caused by Matilda not quite succeeding on her psychic powers, the whole of the Inquisitorial group was transported into Matilda's mind. It was an eerie place where people's truer selves became unveiled. We saw that Kifkin was less a man and more a collection of tomes and secrets. Vasily truly was an incinerant, a soldier for the Emperor, someone who had been questioning his entire purpose this entire time, why he was pulled off the front lines. Why was he in this Inquisitor's retinue? It was to confront chaos and to burn it out. And with a heavenly sight of the Emperor within Matilda's mind, Vasily steeled himself and found purpose. We saw the truth of Safenia, that behind the armor, behind the warrior, there was a child that had been brought up and molded by the forces of the Imperium to be their perfect soldier. But that was just a facade. That inside was still a scared, innocent young girl behind all that armor, behind the warrior. She remembered. All the while, Matilda trying to hold on to secrets, but some being unveiled more than others. That, well, her retinue were some interesting sheep to be used. And Donnie had himself one hell of a time seeing just how strange the truth of the Greater Imperium all is inside the Psyker's mind. Coming to, they tried to salvage what they could from the wrecked vehicle. Safenia finding that they had been tracked, dispatching the cultist and requisitioning his buggy, they continued to make their way, the whole group, back onto the capital. They're sneaking through one of the many water reclamation and disposal sections of the city. They found a city quiet. There were sections that were obviously burning, part of the conflict, but it was painfully, awkwardly quiet. They continued to make their way back to the governor's mansion, the place that they were certain that there would be some sort of answers. And answers there were, in the form of a number of Lehman Russ tanks guarding the governor's mansion, and as well as many Arbites who were pretty much seemingly just going to fire on anyone on sight, including Donnie, which was a surprise to all of us. Then, killing every single Arbite, the tanks, everything, to get into the governor's mansion. There, the Inquisitorial retinue, Matilda at the head of it, found inside a number of individuals slumped, servitors just slumped in their places, seemingly slaughtered, and the servo skulls that helped in doing the day-to-day business of running an imperial planet been turned into dive-bombing, suicidal monstrosities and higher-level Arbites, SWAT, assault stormtroopers. There was one there hidden amongst the fray and was quite an adversary. Upon his dispatch, they moved into the governor's offices to finally confront David, who had seemingly been the puppet master behind all of this. David asking from behind the governor's desk and his rolling chair, asked for the party's surrender. Of course, of which the answer was being shot at. And an epic fight was had. David, an implacable foe, with powers of his own, profane in nature, was able to stave off or ignore Matilda's continual attack upon his mind. And Safenya, that warrior, gunning down and pursuing with the now stoic and certain Vasily confronting David, gunning him and his individual supporters down. And in a final confrontation with David, Safenya was dragged with him out the window overlooking one of the great lakes of acid, which makes Thalanum what it is. With a number of valiant efforts by Vasily and Kifkin, Safenya fell. Something broke in Kifkin's head as he continued to just coldly slaughter what was left of the cultists. Vasily roasting one in a fit of righteous anger. With things now finally quiet, the threat seemingly disposed of, Matilda looked to Donnie and then looked to Kifkin, taking her inquisitorial seal and being done with this business, giving it to Kifkin, who left, and on his way leaving, Vasily, trying to make sense of it all, asked the Inquisitor what to do. Matilda staring at him, going, "You have your job, Vasily, and an Inquisitor to serve." As she looked towards the door, Vasily finally making his way out, as Kifkin looked to get a boat. And that's where we left off.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for retelling it. Yeah, applause. If any of the others would like to add any details or feelings to that story, they're free to.
At the end, Vasily's scared because he doesn't know what Kifkin is, like what Kifkin's going to be like. But yeah, no, that was a damn good summation. Like, that was, again, anybody who's watched the previous season, whenever Pope gets on a roll, like, it's wonderful. So yeah,
Brilliant.
We're privileged to hear it. Yeah.
I'm officially using stroganoffing as my new favorite verb. An adjective.
So my main question is, did you write that down beforehand?
I had bullet point notes of little places, and then all of this was me trying to pull from memory.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, you got a good memory there, man.
Okay, so we know that Safenya isn't coming back in the foreseeable future. Maybe her skeleton will rise by necromancer someday to like 10 decades
Call
ahead or
it
something.
right now. She is the big bad evil guy this season. We get that
Right.
psychic mecha morph thing going on.
What they heard, the last transmission that came over Sifenia's comm, there were no screams, there was just silence, was, I have done my duty to my Emperor and my Inquisitor. God is dead. Long live the Emperor.
All right. So after this recap, I have one, actually two important questions. The first one being the helmet that was buried underground. You took some time to settle stuff on the planet. Did you go back and collect the helmet?
I would say that if Matilda got a say in it, then that would be a yes. And she would have requisitioned some of the hazardous material equipment from one of the factories, something similar to remove it. Obviously not wanting people to come in contact with it because we don't know its nature. And we've seen the effects of strange metals on people, including Joseph jumping into the acid, amongst other things. So that would be my suggestion. Because Matilda had definitely been very torn about leaving that helmet behind, but really at the time the urgency had been to go and find out what was going on in the capital and to track down, if we could, the current leader of the cult and stop anything from happening beyond.
Yeah,
okay.
I similarly, like along those lines, I think Vasily, even though like there would be that initial hesitation of like, no, it's a chaos object, like that's not what we do here, like we need to destroy it. I think he would have relented just because we know so little about it, and the Inquisition is all sort of like, oh yeah, let's take the dangerous shit with us. Like that's a good idea.
Also, the thing with destroying it is we don't necessarily know how to destroy it in a way that isn't going to toxify the area with chaos, heresy, and pollutant. So at least we know this is contained theoretically within this one object for now. Whereas if we blow it up, that could be dust everywhere. That could be pollutant into the groundwater. But of course, there is another Inquisitor who may have an opinion on the matter. What would Kifkin's input be?
Kifkin would not act upon his initial feelings, because his initial feelings is, we're going to glass the area, then we're going to glass it again, and again, until I feel good about it. But no, he could be persuaded to retrieve the object, as long as we use the really big tweezers and put it into a lead box covered in purity seals, and then put it in the deepest, darkest part of the Emperor's sun to sit there until we get to a secure facility for study.
I think this would be a compromise that we would all agree on.
Yeah. So you will have it on your ship in stasis, in the vaults underneath, in the bowels of the ship. The second question is, what have you done on the planet before you left? And I'd like to start that part with how have you resolved your intergroup situation with Matilda leaving the seal to Kifkin? We'll be traveling as a group, I think, at least for now. And how would you have resolved that?
Well, just picking up where we left off, Kifkin went and found a damn boat, and retrieval materials to go and fish what's left of Sifenia out of the damn lake. Whilst doing that, because multitasker extraordinaire, would have had Matilda declared dead and sent that off through official channels, as well as realizing that dead Inquisitors still leave questions, so having to come up with an entirely new persona for both her and Donnie to keep them both safe. so that if they continue to travel, there's someone new.
I think prior to being declared dead, Matilda and Donnie, Matilda was pretty wounded, if I remember correctly, from the end of last session. Would have worked to at least stabilize the situation in the capital, the government having somewhat fallen with the dead governor, with David dying as head of the Arbites. We would have worked with I forget what the religious order that's on the planet, I forget what that was called, as well as the current Arbites.
Church.
Yeah, would have worked with the church and with the Arbites to come up with a stasis and reached out to, I believe we were actually given a name of who would inherit one of the foremans, one of the factories, and for now would have been in charge. I know I wrote it down, but yeah, so basically Matilda and Donnie would have worked to basically stabilize and instate a temporary government of sorts so that the planet can continue as a factory planet, because the whole point of not just annihilating the planet was to ensure that the Emperor still got his acid for his las guns and other resources that the Imperium requires.
Along those same lines, I think that it would have been a long time for Vasily to actually subject to Kifkin's sort of way of doing things. It's very formalized. It's very it's very structured.
Rigid.
Yeah, rigid. And he'd come across that in the Adeptus Militarum, like the regiments that he served and whatnot, especially serving with Mordian Iron Guard, which he just hated. But I think he would have assisted in putting down whatever internal threats there are, and also keeping the ecclesiarchy informed of the goings on of chaos and how there might need to be requisitioned some persons who might be able to actually purify the area, not Vasily, because his is more of a battlefront sort of situation. Obviously he assumes that that's gone, so he'd probably again coordinate with Donnie and the others within the local Arbites force, maybe even try and get some people from the Emperor's Son to help out, just kind of keep the peace until there was such a government or governance that made sure that things didn't catch on fire, or at least didn't catch things on fire that they didn't want on fire.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will... when cleaning up the planet, there's a few loose ends which you manage to find and either kill or interrogate. They don't give you any new leads off planet. They were local folks and locally recruited, locally killed. So
it's that good home-sourced fucking
home-sourced
mass
cool.
murder.
Yeah, which basically makes the planet a dead end in this investigation. Apart from actually getting the helmet from it, which visually at least appears to be the same material as the sliver, which I think I mentioned in the last episode as well. So going forward, Matilda, will Matilda be traveling with Kifkin? I assume so, right?
So I think as
Donnie?
she went to kind of sleep that night, she had one of those visions that she's kind of had haunting her for a long time in her life, and she kind of realized that she can't just quit the Emperor. He knows, or at least the voice in her head knows.
Yeah.
And as such, she would have found Kipkin maybe the next day or the day after, depending on where Kipkin was and what was going on, and agreed with him that she needed to keep doing what they were doing.
If you'd like, that could be something you could play now. The meeting. Or narrate it, that's fine. Either's fine with me.
I think narrate unless it just kind of happens, I guess.
Yeah, then continue.
So she wouldn't have necessarily explained exactly. The little voices in my head told me to get my ass back to work. But Kipkin, knowing what Kipkin probably knows about her, would definitely have the impression that her mind was made up and that this wasn't her demoting him as such. She would respect the promotion he was given, but that she was still Matilda. And she still had a mission.
Mm-hmm. And what are Kifkin's thoughts on that?
Again, try to prepare for these sort of things, but primarily just going, okay, this is going to be somewhat awkward, but insisting that both she and Donnie, for their own safety's sake, be declared dead. Making certain that all records of those two individuals end on Thalanum 3. And entirely new people are just introduced to the billions upon billions, trillions of the Imperial citizenry, just pop up in his now new retinue.
And Matilda would point out that it wouldn't be abnormal for an Inquisitor to hire their own squad.
No, and in pure terms of giving you a title, that would make you a new persona and a sanctioned psyker in the retinue of a Inquisitor. And what role would you give Donnie? What official title, so to say?
New persona for Donnie. He is a former MP for one of the local planetary defense forces that has been co-opted as a local scout and guide to the system.
All right.
So he is sort of a sector scout. In more traditional 40K terms, he pretty much serves the role of one of the bounty hunters that works for an Inquisitor. A lot of times they are ex-Arbites that know the local citizenry and local hierarchies of both police and scum.
Yeah, that will do. Donnie will try to take on the role, and we'll see how that will pan out if it's ever put into question. If he doesn't die before that, of course. All right. Anything to add to that?
I think now that we basically have control of the planet, it would just be pushing to get that navigator for our ship so that we can get the hell off of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The navigator will arrive somewhere during your slightly more longer investigation period of actually rooting out every single individual that's left on the planet that was connected to this. Allowing you to travel again, which means you can now actually travel off system and go on the investigation we set out to do, actually. And I have one... Well, unless you want to go to any other sector first, there was the sector with a metallurgist, the metal expert. Let's put it like that with my perfect English after not talking too much English in months, which is
I think one tiny postscript
K
note.
-6 had it.
One tiny postscript note is I believe Kipkin would have ordered the construction of something within the capital that we've discussed.
Yeah, no. Kifkin's quick postscript is through paperwork having Thalanum 3 redeclared and reclassified as a shrine world, having Sophinia, her armor and remains interred in the local cathedral, and getting the paperwork moving along to probably in 2 centuries have her declared an imperial saint. And
She's gonna haunt you forever for that.
2 centuries, I should be dead. And then have an abbey of the Sisters of our Martyred Lady set on top of what was the governor's mansion. But that'll take about 5 decades before that actually goes through.
Yikes. I will note, especially with that, Vasily would be very, very confused as to why Kifkin is sort of going through all of this pomp and circumstance. Not that he doesn't have faith, but because he views Sifenia's body as nothing but like bits of acid burnt flesh and bone, and that wherever her spirit is now resides with the Emperor. So he's quietly kind of like squinting his eyes and like, why are we doing this? What's happening now? That's the only thing that's kind of replaying in his head throughout this whole process, which I assume takes months or at least weeks.
Oh, would you ever have confronted Kifkin with that, though?
Not unless Kifkin noticed, and I think he would have, like, in comparison to Matilda, just sat and sort of analyzed Kifkin as best he could, because he's still not that.
Yeah, no. In analyzing Kifkin, you know that you've seen soldiers kind of just go off seeing the horrors of war, where their minds are trying to make sense of it all. That's where he's at. He is entirely in flux. And the one thing that is allowing him to have any sense of structure is just relying on all this paperwork. That is the one area of focus.
He inherited Sifenia's 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, he's not right, but he's doing the best he can.
I think then at some point Vasily would have, like, almost forcibly torn Kifkin away from the paperwork and made him, like, look out the window at the horizon of the planet while we were, like, aboard the Emperor's Sun for whatever reason, and just make him not work. Because as much as Vasily knows that if you attach yourself to something more than you attach to the world around you and to the Emperor's creation, then you are soon lost. So I think at a certain point it would be like, time out, grab by the scruff of the neck and drag, like, to a field or something so that he can allow things to process.
He would have had a full-on breakdown. He would thank you, and then the very next day confront you, go, if you ever do that again, you will end up where the rest of your squad is.
Then I shall be glad, for they are still serving the Emperor.
Just
It's what you deal with when you've got religious nutsos.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
No, just have the sites marked as do not go exclusion zones, basically.
Yeah. I assume this must. So I will bring up the nice map of the sector, which I totally hand drawn, like. All right,
beautiful.
So
wonderful.
we always had the sector, but now it's actually a bit more visual. What you see is the first of all the purple area is a nebula, making physical travel harder, warp travel not per se. The yellow ish. Yellow, dark yellow, is actually a warp site disturbance, making travel harder. The red systems are quite regular systems with their own points of interest in them, some of which you visited. You visited Thelenum. You visited Nylata, I think.
Yes, Nylata.
Where you found the first one. K- holds the Forge World, which holds a Furnace World, actually, focusing on metals, which would probably hold high-ranking Adeptus Mechanicus to investigate. The green systems export mostly food and stocks for the war effort. Quantus is a modern world that holds Lasgun battery factory, which came up somewhere because I actually added it to my list. So Harata is where the sector gets its name from, which holds the local port, at least for the sector, the Imperial Navy port for the sector. And then there's Scythe, which is a frontier world, which we haven't mentioned yet, has been added to the mental map at least. It's a frontier world that's sometimes raided by orc pirates, which come from across the orange line on the bottom left from Noma, which is a system which is... People don't go there because pirates are a bigger threat if you go there compared to investing in other systems. So I was gonna assume you wanted to travel to K-6 for investigating the sliver properly and the helmet. Does that still stand? That's the main question.
That's the first stop.
Yeah.
If there is a second stop, it's going to Harada after finding that information and kicking the tires and lighting the fires with the local Imperial Navy, going, why are you letting greenskins through the back door and causing problems? And getting answers there.
The last thing you know about the war effort on that side is that they're actually currently actively fighting them. But compared to actually settling on planets, Noma is off limits, so to say. Before they get there, that's going to be years of a guerrilla warfare, because these orcs, they don't all come from the same planet. They come from asteroid fields sometimes as well. They're hard to root out, so that's why it's not been done within a month, so to say. And resources are always an issue, because there have been bigger wars stealing some of the Navy resources here as well, just not in this sector. But that's something you could investigate, of course, if you don't naturally end up there.
Yeah.
K- though, in transit, you do get a moment to look to yourself, see what areas you'd like to train on, improve, or actually neglect, giving us a moment to reflect on your characters. And let me get the correct line. So what would your characters have been doing in transit? Would they have any upgrades in terms of rules they would like to have done, new areas they'd like to have trained, and the sorts? And let's start with Matilda.
Ooh, this is a very good question. So as I look at my sheet at the moment, Matilda obviously has a great deal of psychic power that she's been developing, and it was developing more and more as we went through the game, until obviously she faced David, whom was immune, and she was pretty physically shattered by that point. And with the loss of Safenya, who was the muscle, the power, the physical power of the group, I think that Matilda may be starting to develop her physical soldier side a little bit more again.
Mm-hmm.
She has some skill with her saber, but I think she wants to work on her gun control, which she has very little of. Just in case we ever come into a situation where psychic powers aren't going to work again.
Yep.
And I think obviously with having Donnie on board, there's someone who could potentially kind of train her in that. And it also keeps her out of Kipkin's way. If she goes down to the gym, she can do some work there, and it's kind of out of Kipkin's way, so Kipkin can get on with doing what Kipkin's doing.
That also a question for me comes up. Would you have left the captain's quarters for Kipkin now?
No.
Okay. But then the next question is Donnie now also sleeping in the captain's quarters?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think point of order, I think they would have gone to the ship and Matilda would have offered the quarters to Kipkin.
Okay.
She wouldn't have just given them to him, but she would have offered, and then it's up to Kipkin if he accepts or not.
Kifkin goes, yeah, no, you can keep the quarters. I prefer to cryo sleep while going through the warp, and unless it's an absolute emergency, don't wake me.
Nodded.
Okay. So your office is still going to be in the ship's library, probably.
It's actually in the ship's medical ward, near the morgue. He has like a cryo tube that is between the medical wing and the morgue that he just slips into, and that's where he sleeps.
Okay. So
we're strange creatures of habit on our ship.
Yeah,
we like being where we used to.
Yeah. So then, keeping with Matilda, Donnie will help you train. In terms of rules, we'll get to that before next episode. Donnie himself will have focused on getting all the training he's had, all the experience he's had, and actually put that into a combat prowess rather than his social side, which he's been on the planet. He's also, he's probably suffering from some form of PTSD, like everyone in this universe. So that shines through. He's wearing the black carapace, painting all his weapons black, etc. Adding Imperial seals to it. Let's follow the line to the viewers, right? My left. Vesely, how has Vesely spent his time traveling? Did he focus on upgrading anything?
I think, quick point of order. Did the power level of the campaign increase to where, like, I could dump more points into, say, chain weapons and, like, get more damage, or is it still at a 5?
Well, now we actually went to 6, one episode before the last episode.
Okay.
Leaving us at 6, but with an extra 5 experience points. At the end of the campaign.
Okay. Well, I'll figure out the specifics later. But
of course,
I think Sifenia's death didn't really affect him as deeply as some of the other party, because he views it again as like, well, the body's dead, but the soul is the Emperor's, so sorry that it was you and not me. And I think in sort of honorance, he would have tried to tried and probably failed to be a little bit more tactical. So I think that it would be that he wanted to focus more on the overall and not just himself. So to try and pick up like some either leadership qualities or like maybe an extension of his original power of hang on, let me get the name there. Yes, Domini Libre Nos, or Libra Nos, which is that spiritual leadership luck control thing, maybe adding a secondary component where instead of just changing this one thing at a decisive moment, he could actually affect the group going into battle, or when they're in the thick of it, bolster his own powers to like actually do more damage. Since he's only working with a chain sword and a flamer, which he's gonna be using forever and a day. I think he would have tried to make himself the cheerleader and like the one to sort of really inspire confidence in the battle.
Okay. Yeah, there's ways to express that in the rules as well. So
yeah, lots of meditation. Lots of meditation, which would have been counterintuitive for Vasily's initial impressions.
Oh, someone's gonna run the ship's church, right? Now that the Sister of Battle is gone to lead the prayers. Yeah,
his prayers are extremely short, extremely bleak, and just sort of plain statement of facts. We're probably gonna die. Emperor preserve us.
No, you can scrap the probably, because that's the one thing that's inevitable.
We will die, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let it be a good death. Drink up.
Yeah, exactly.
Mazel tov.
Anything else?
Outside of that, I think he would have actually wanted to see how Matilda adapted, like from being the head honcho to now being just a sanctioned psyker, and also having this new relationship on board. Like, he'd be the worst guidance counselor of all time. But I think that he would like genuinely kind of not take an interest, but like be genuinely curious about what she thinks going to happen when Donnie gets in a situation he doesn't get out of and shit like that.
I think if he continues with that and like gets in her way so much, she will finally bounce him around a room with her psychic powers. Something that she has longed to do, but while she was in charge would have probably been unethical. Now she's not in charge, she can happily bounce you around a room.
Yeah.
I wonder
true banter, right?
It's just banter. I wonder if that wouldn't be like a thing that's developed, that whenever we're just pissed at somebody, we go at them either with psychic powers or with whatever we've got. That's the way to get out all the stress. Sparring sessions.
Or Matilda could just lock him in her mind again for a little while.
Oh, that would be fun.
Matilda's version of the naughty corner.
I got more powers. I can test them out. Thanks.
I think it would have been one of those like just like a venting frustration thing, and then afterwards she would have like helped you up and kind of like a clearing of the air without saying anything.
Yeah, well, I actually imagine the two of you sparring in the dojo with practice swords to resolve stuff, because you want to train and he needs to get his frustration out. That could be something the two of you could also do.
You never used the psychic powers
before. It escalates, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. At some point, you just use the psychic powers, blast me across the room, and like up on the ceiling, like full just pinballing for like 5 minutes until such time as
Like goes for a Palpatine on him.
I was thinking
pretty much
like Hulk smash puny god, but with her mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. At which point he'd get up and just sort of like, fair enough, just be safe. Like,
no babies on the ship.
No babies on the ship that just eat. They don't even do shit. Whatever. It's just grumble all the way to the med. Yeah. That's fair.
Right.
But yeah, that would be it.
So what does Kifkin think of that?
As long as it doesn't interfere with the investigation, in his mind, with everything that happened, they've earned it.
Yeah.
If they want to be here, fine. If they want to retire to some planet, fine. in Kifkin's mind, for the most part, those two have earned whatever future they want.
All right. So yeah, that leads us into what does Kifkin do in the downtime?
Kifkin is tired of crashing, so he is just jamming every single piloting and driving sim he can and becoming a damn good pilot and driver. Because Emperor knows just how much time was lost after one crash and then another. So he is going to try and become a piloting and driving ace between now and getting to K-.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else?
The other thing is just there's this nagging in the back of his head where he's going to go, now that he has permission to the darker computer access and just learning everything there is there, because he knows he's going to probably have to know some even darker stuff to stop whatever's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can basically get any of the information that's stored on the ship's data banks that was sealed behind. Well, you already had access to anything sealed, but you would only open it when you needed it, rather than memorizing it beforehand. Now you can read those, and if there's anything specific you would like to have added to the database, you would still need to get an astropath to get that beamed through, encrypted, with all the risks and advantages of that.
Yeah, no, the big thing that he wants, now that he's got the seal, aside from sending the paperwork to legitimize himself within the eyes of the Inquisition, he is going to get every single dossier about army compositions, strength, location of the different Space Marine chapters that are nearby, their composition, strength, dispositions.
Okay.
Because more and more he's realizing what happened on Thalanum was minor. This is the calm before the storm. And if he's going to have to call in a war, he wants to know what his resources are.
Okay. Yeah, processing that will take some time. The sector itself does not hold any Space Marine chapters. There are some within reasonable travel distance in case of conflict, and the rest I will get you a list next session, so to say. Then anything else?
That's the primary long and short of it. Okay. Especially just getting the paperwork done to go. No, my previous Inquisitor died. I took up the seal, and if you know, which I already do, these rules here, and here, citing these sources, I am acting Inquisitor. If any of you want to take that from me, you need to get a Lord High Inquisitor over here to this sector now. Otherwise, I will remain acting Inquisitor. When I get a chance to finish up whatever things are happening in the Hurrah sector, I will then transit to the nearest inquisitorial palace to be seen as either worthy or not. Transmission out.
Okay. All right. The last thing we need to do before we physically travel to the K- system is give our new navigator a name. I haven't named him yet, so
okay.
Because it's one of those key persons.
The navigator's name is Sanctinius.
I will write that down.
Uh,
Try
fair
not
enough,
to kill him
yeah.
too fast this time.
Not going to try and kill him off.
At all.
Especially with that particular name, it comes to one of the 4 more noble and acknowledged navigator houses,
Yeah.
going by convention. So we didn't get a renegade. Good.
Yeah,
Well, we hope.
well, if you commandeer some rogue trader ship, then you're gonna get a renegade. But yeah,
And there's
all right.
a Matilda Keep Out sign hanging on his door now.
Yeah, because next up, because we also have Cleric of Court here, who will be introducing a new character shortly. But we're gonna actually do that in game, because as you arrive on the Keminus system, is there anything you would like to do there before you head out to find the Adeptus?
On K minus.
Yeah.
The primary thing to do once we're in system, before we even make planetfall, is to reach out to the local Mechanicus, make formal our arrival. Kifkin's not going to try and hide anything right now, so it's just like, hi, the Inquisition's in town. Yeah, that's right. Let all your heretics know that whatever little things that they're practicing need to be wrapped up real quick, because we're here for your best and brightest to answer our questions.
Okay. Well, that will quickly get you into the office of someone really important, actually played by Clerk of Court. Does your character have a name yet?
Indeed, they do. Yes,
Okay.
they are. Are you ready?
First of all, just a name, because then we know
Okay.
which office to send them through.
Senator Albucasis.
Can you also type that down for me so
Yep.
I can?
I will certainly do that.
Okay. Who is a specialist in these kinds of matters? I will add the name to our screen and save that. Now for the next scene, you will. I will allow you to introduce and describe yourself. But after that, keep an eye on Twitter, because I'm gonna feed you any answers of stuff you find out, so you can tell the party yourself what you find out. But that's the next step when you actually start to investigate stuff. So you are sent to the office of. Actually, why did I close the chat window? Janitor Albucasis, and you get an audience with them. As you enter, Cleric, how does your office look? Do you have any retinue at your home base? And how does the janitor look? Is it him or her, or is it unclear?
Unclear.
Unclear.
They.
Okay.
Any external signs of gender have long since.
So it's the janitor with a G.
Yes.
Yeah, feel free to describe. Well, let me first describe the planet, because that kind of sets the scene here. It's a furnace world, so it's actually filled with large factory-sized furnaces, metal processing, transports of those, big smokestacks everywhere, and the factories, they go down layers. All the way to, well, where you can't see them anymore. Transport is done mostly by personnel cars on rails attached to the buildings, and you're brought to one of the fancier factories, which is an Adeptus Mechanicus office here among the factories. And you enter the building housing Janitor Albucasis. Go ahead, Claire.
The office there are several servitor skulls kind of whirring around doing different things. There is one wall that is completely lined with shelves, holding what appears to be various types of organic matter in liquid, along with some of these pieces of organic matter also have obvious mechanical components attached to them. Some of them seem to twitch or move at times. They're in their crimson cloak. There seem to be some interesting lumps protruding from the back of the cloak that will prove to be mechanical arms, extensions that come out with various sets of tools attached to them. One eye is obviously mechanical. There's a loop. The other eye is covered by a what looks like a patch. Their legs are basically kind of trying to think of how to best to describe this. They are metal skeletal, resembling a human leg, but with the extra cocked joint that is reminiscent of a hock of, say, a horse or something, to give them that better flex and push. Again, there's no visible signs of any gender. The only thing that really resembles or lets you know that this was once a human is a heavily scarred arm and hand, and the lower left cheek that is of their face and jaw, which is also carries burn scars. They are wearing what would most likely be a simple tunic underneath their crimson cloak, hiding, covering things that would be more disturbing to most individuals. And they're going through, and they seem to be doing things, obviously communicating, communicating in some way with the servitors as they are carrying out these various projects and research, flipping through books and things.
Yeah. Then, as a reminder to our viewers and yourselves, I would like to also get a description of the rest of the party as they enter the office. Whoever shouts first gets first turn. Else I'm gonna point.
Me.
All right. All right.
All right. Vasily is a mess of a man, probably like more bohemian in style, although his the formality of his dress would be betray that sensibility. He is dressed in the in a strange mixture of the uniform of the Vostroyan Firstborn, of which he was assigned during his days as an incinerant, as well as sort of the cool overcoat and sort of prim and proper dress of the Mordian Iron Guard. He's basically like, it seems that he's hobnobbed a lot of Imperial Guard uniforms into something that fits his personal tastes, with a heavy flamer strapped to his back and a chainsword at his side at all times. He's also got very shock white hair, like no silver to it, almost as if it was bleached. That's actually starting to grow in, because I forgot that Matilda once upon a time made him shave his entire head. so that he could infiltrate, as was said in the summary, the sort of society that was inherent back then.
Will have been able. It's going to be a couple of months before you actually get here, so you can give it the length it deserves.
Yeah, the desired length. I think it would have.
Yeah.
He would have made it shorter, like something akin to like a buzz cut or like an undercut. And yeah, his skin is very. At least the skin around his face is very lightly scarred, although his arms and legs suffer the strains of the campaigns he's been a part of. And yeah, he's just sort of this Damian Lewis kind of wild-eyed specter of a man that has probably actually bulked up a little given the training that Matilda put him through, i.e. slamming him into a wall and the roof several times. On several occasions. But beyond that, he's visibly uncomfortable as he's on this planet. So, yeah.
All right. Next. It's going to be...
Right.
Well, I'm wondering the order we go into the room, because that's kind of important in terms of the power dynamic of the group.
Yeah.
I think Kivkin goes in first. He now, with the Inquisitorial seal, really just doesn't give a damn about appearances anymore. He's got his Inferno pistol on one hip, his Power Maul on the other, crimson red tunic more belying a member of the Administratum, and now wears a green cloak with hood. So he looks almost like a mishmash of a 40k Administratum scholar and a hobbit. Just completely disheveled, uncared for, unkempt beard, hands stained with all sorts of different inks, and even his beard has just like little bits of ink stains remaining there. Dark, deep-set eyes. He seemed to have probably aged within these past few months of travel like 5 additional years, and seems sickly, but for just how well he carries himself.
All right.
And Matilda, somewhere near the back of the group, as she always used to be, is a petite woman. Although she shows now some slight musculature that she's been developing all the hours in the gym on the ship on the way here, with dark cropped hair and these grey eyes, which currently are kind of mid-tone. They tend to darken if she unleashes psycho powers. But for now, she's not really doing very much, so they're in kind of the neutral state. She's got a deep olive skin tone. Despite spending most of her time out of the light and indoors, it has darkened a little from our time down on the planet, having had to supervise some excavations and make sure some sites were neutralized, as well as, crashing cars and having to sit out in the sun half the day while we figure out how we're going to get from point A to B. I think her clothing would be like just simple black kind of leather type things. Just nondescript but functional kind of armament to it, kind of tactical gear. And she would have probably her saber with her.
Actually, one thing I should have mentioned like an hour ago, which you got gifted a weapon last season, a magical weapon, so to say. If you want, the staff which the cultist was using, you also found that with the helmet. Upon inspection, it actually it looks like a force staff, but it's not tainted. It's purely something you can use to channel stuff. That's an option for you. I'll have you think on that later.
Yeah, I'll think about that and get back to you.
Or you can pick up something from this planet instead.
Yeah, but now she's got her saber, and it's kind of there in more of like a ceremonial, formal. We're armed, but we're not like super dangerous and hostile kind of manner.
Yeah. Okay. The last to enter the room is Donnie, who is now that he no longer has to wear a gas mask every day. He's actually growing a beard, but it's trimmed beard. It's not growing wild like mine currently is. It's blonde, of course, though there might now be some gray hairs in between after all that's happened. He's letting his hair grow a little bit, not being tied to a helmet full time anymore, and he's wearing the black mastercrafted carapace. He had received earlier on, keeping it well, very clean. Since you are actually out in the open as an Inquisitor, he will wear a badge of it, an Inquisitorial badge on his shoulder, which he would replace with a non-marked shoulder pad in other situations. He's having his Helgen on his back and a power sword on his side. I think that completes the party. Now the question is, who will say the first word?
Well, as they enter, they'll hear a almost like a burst of static or white noise, and then as one of as Abacasis is obviously reading a book, but one of the servitor skulls turns and looks towards them, and there's the sound, and then after a moment's pause, you hear very kind of creaky voice, somebody that's unused to speaking. Apologies, my Inquisitor. How can I help you?
Blessings of the Omnissiah be upon you this day. I'm here to have a relic of sorts analyzed. It's picked up on Thalanum 3. It needs to be handled with utmost care, as its nature has yet to be determined as not heretical, considering that the metal is similar to which that caused, upon previous inspection, that inspector to throw themselves into a vat of acid.
Indeed. So, not a true believer then of the Omnissiah.
The inspector I cannot speak to. As for myself, I respect the Emperor in all of his glorious forms.
Yes. Well, where's this relic?
Still aboard the ship. I wanted to make certain that all the formalities and paperwork were filed before moving the cursed thing.
Mm. And it is just this one item.
That and the previous sliver used in the autopsy, which is still under inquisitorial care.
Autopsy?
Yes, the sliver in question was embedded in the neck of a cultist. Turned him blue. Well, purple blue. But yeah, as to other details, they're spotty at best.
And there's silence for a moment. And then as he's finished accessing the ship's whatever records and paperwork Kipkin has filed, and probably a few that aren't available to most. Most interesting. Yes. I would like to see this relic.
Excellent. Well, I can make certain pulls out a data pad. And it's sent post haste. Making certain that only servitors handle it from here on out. Until it's in your capable hands, I look forward to what analysis can be pulled from this thing, and whether I should have left it on the planet and glassed it.
I look forward to examining it.
So, tell me, Janitor, this is my first time in the Hirata system, and my first time to K-. I have a feeling that we're going to be here for a while. So, aside from the usual Mechanicus lot, is there any particular sights I should enjoy while I inevitably await someone to do something stupid?
Do you enjoy molten rock?
Not especially. I just got a place that had plenty of molten everything. Too much acid.
Matilda is heavily side-eyeing Vasily at Kipkin's mention of waiting for someone to do something stupid.
At which point, I think Vasily is sort of fighting the temptation to poke one of the servitor skulls that has like drifted a little bit too close for comfort. So it's just like a finger like coming into view, just debating.
Do that. If I were you.
An inadvisable course of action?
They carry a rather nasty bite.
Oh no, I know it well.
No.
We destroyed 5, yes?
No, those were a different model. These are far more advanced, Vasily.
Hands in pockets at that point from now on.
Have you heard of digi-weapons, Vasily? Fascinating things made by the Jakero originally, before actually being sanctioned by the Inquisition for human use. They are incorporated into many a number of servo skulls. You can have anything from melta embedded into one of the servo skull's eyes to even microtized and highly functional chain weaponry that spout out of their mouths. Useful for cutting, especially industrial products.
Game Master, just real quick. Just a quick question. As I have Adeptus Militarum history, would I know like everything that Kipkin is sort of referring to?
Well, you would not know the specifics of how it works, but you do know that the Skitari actually stand for military side of the Adeptus Mechanicus. And either in retinue or in armies, they are deadly. Like something you would stay away from if you were to fight alongside them in your regiment.
Right.
But you would be happy that they are fighting.
Yes, I've served with a couple of. He'd just be distracted by the server skull. A couple of your organization. Privileged to serve. Terrified of their capabilities.
Yes, well, I've had a few of my own alterations as well. Always experimenting, always learning.
Hands deeper in pockets.
Should you wish to donate for further, I always welcome them. You need simply reach out and touch.
Hopefully, Vasily will be smart enough not to be leaving too many donations about your lab, Janitor. But as for molten rock, I'd rather not. Can you say the disposition of your local magi? I have a feeling I'm going to have a meeting with one or two of them in the meantime.
Well, We have, I believe, a few. At least one. I will have the information transferred to you.
Excellent. Anything out of the ordinary happened lately? Any travelers that have made their way to Caminus 6? Any interesting leavings by any number of vessels that have probably passed through?
Define interesting.
People exhibiting discolorations, individuals with acid scoring on their bodies, anyone who's maybe probably trying to practice the cold trade. Again, rogue traders have the writ to do so, but we know that doesn't stop everyone.
If I may, Lord Inquisitor, in a word, heretics.
Some of my finest donators. Let me see. And one of the skulls has gone over and is appears to be accessing something before turning and facing the janitor. Yes. It does appear that we've had a few. Even one with the odd coloring. Interesting.
You incorporate heretics into your machines.
No, I incorporate my machines into heretics.
Servitor reclamation. A noble art.
They have their uses on a furnace world.
Excellent.
They last a little longer than pure flesh, and make themselves useful for the short period of time that they survive.
I feel like Vasily and Matilda, for once in their lives, agree on the stance that we have about these things.
Yeah, wonderful, great. No.
Look at us growing.
like that's the one thing throughout this whole adventure that we can agree on.
This whole lab in Matilda's brain just started glowing purple, like heretic, 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 heretic.
Lovely.
Well,
Burn it all. Burn it all.
Oh, and that is indeed what we do. They all burn eventually.
Lovely.
After making themselves useful.
Note to self. Reclamate more rebreathers. All right. Subnote to self. Also get an air freshener. Well, in that case, I will leave you to your work, janitor. You have been absolutely most helpful. I look forward to what you're able to find from this artifact and future conversations down the line.
Do you have the body that the sliver was pulled from? You said it was an autopsy.
The body was disposed of. It was considered a biohazard threat after a month on board vessel and was therefore purged. However, I do actually have the sliver on person as he pulls out a small metal case covered in purity seals.
Oh, most interesting. And this Bacandrite comes up out of from behind the cloak in its lid and reaches out, plucks it, opens it up. Oh my, yes. And starts kind of poking and prodding at it.
Well, Careful, I wouldn't discharge any electricity. That's what caused the previous individual to throw themselves into a vat of acid.
Yes, well, there are no vats of acid here, so. But I thank you for the
Matilda would like to attempt to surface read this individual because this is heebie-jeebies.
Is this wise?
She's pretty liberal, but this is heebie-jeebies.
Look, we respect all viewpoints and whatnot, but also
She's fine with like the mechanist stuff, but this being like really excited about heretical stuff is concerning. She's used to Kifkin, who can spout it, but he at least looks scared as he spouts it.
this is genuine interest. Where's my red flags? I need a red flag.
I'm wearing it.
I need several.
Like there's another Mechanorat coming up with a red flag. Like,
Yes, yeah. A piece of the cloak gets up and waves.
And that's the first time that we've seen those arms in action. So Vasily, even though he's seen like some servitors, I don't know if he's like actually seen ones with like really like functional extra limbs and like dock-ocking all over the place. So
wonderful note about the Mechanicum that serve alongside the guard. They don't usually have the small mechadendrites. Oh no, they have the industrial grade ones. So it's more likely you've seen one that has had their entire spine and bone structure reinforced to carry this massive, like, mechanical arm, which is used for no less than lifting and performing maintenance on Chimera.
yeah, I think he'd be more used to that. Like that would be in his wheelhouse. So it's like, oh, it's just a tool. It's just a tool. But when it's like limbs, it's somehow more disturbing.
This is very slender, delicate, with multiple, what looks almost like, one has what appears to be almost surgical tools, various tweezers and blades and things, drills, very fine drill points. And the other...
A drill is not a surgical tool.
it is.
Yes, it is. So are saws. They're great. Well, you know,
That's, I guess.
And then the other one appears to be much more almost like a jeweler or dental's tools, very for that kind of fine work.
I'm just hearing that buzzing whir up. You know when they get the dental drill out and it goes, and you're like, no.
So, Matilda, just read the janitor's mind, please.
Right?
Save us from these nightmare descriptions.
The nightmare fuel. All right, so I need to roll a willpower test, correct, Bastian?
What did you want to do?
I want to surface read the janitor's mind.
Okay. Of course, it is a willpower roll. I haven't seen a character sheet yet. It is gonna happen. Sorry.
You should be able to access it in the drive.
Okay. Yeah. What I meant to say is I haven't looked at it yet. So, do you have any special defenses against mind influencing things?
Well, given that quite a bit of their mind is been computerized, most of their processing is done with implanted computers. I don't have the exact terminology in front of me at the moment, but the organic mind, mostly what you're going to get is curiosity.
Okay, so what you will have to do is roll an opposed willpower.
Okay, and I have nothing set up for them, so let me just pull this up.
And if you want, I can roll for you as well.
Okay. See my nope. I'll just put my modifier in here. Roll a d20. That's a 16.
16, and Matilda?
have a look. 18 plus 5, I think.
Okay. That will give you slightly the next level below surface thoughts, which is, in this case, well, what you're actually thinking rather than memory, which is the next level.
Right.
But what you find, it's all, it's like a foreign language to you, almost, in thought train. So I will allow Cleric, you can, if you want to give her anything, that's the way you can even use keywords for it instead of sentences.
Right. Mostly what you're getting is ones and zeros, binary. But there are some things that don't translate well to binary. And you get things like curious, more, very curious, play,
and it's almost like it's like headers on a box of thoughts which you can't really.
I'm kind of imagining it like a Google Doc, and like these words are just slowly like typing in across Matilda's mind.
It's like code scrolling by, but you don't read code.
Mm-hmm. It's like looking at that matrix screen where all the zeros and ones are dropping down, but then like little words form in them.
Like some proper ASCII shit just going.
Yep, you might even get like more like images than actual words.
If you would have a computer in your head.
Yeah.
All right. So go ahead. That's what you get.
She's gonna glance to Vasily and give him a small shake of her head, like, not good.
At which point, just on the pommel of his chainsword, he'd just sort of like wrap his fingers around it and dig in the fingernails.
Perhaps I could suggest a little caution, Janitor.
Do you fear this?
It is, at the very least, possibly toxic. Definitely heretical.
Definitely conductive. And I would hate to short circuit you, Janitor.
Oh, I have already moved well past conductivity. I mean, we're doing electron microscope type examinations here at this point.
I feel like Matilda instinctively is going to step in front of Donnie, just going to blow us all up. That's it, we're all going to die here today. Oh, sorry,
and they haven't even touched it yet. They haven't actually even, nothing has physically touched it. It's all been...
All right. So, do you move into actually examining the sliver here with them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just base examination is going to be, again, the way I mentioned, this is somebody who's, this is their bailiwick, especially something that's been implanted in somebody. So it's molecular, they're looking at molecular structure, they're looking at chemical composites, any trace of bio on this liver, and what information can be gained from that, whether genetic or that type of thing. Again, the electron microscope kind of thing, looking down into this thing.
Okay. I will have you roll an expertise check, which you have. Actually, you can roll me a technology, which is higher in your case.
Okay.
Because the expertise is more about book knowledge, and this is actually actively investigating the material. The result will decide the degree of extra information you get above which I plan to give you.
All right. Well, that was a bad roll. So 18?
18 isn't a bad roll. It's not a natural one on a check to test conductivity like Joseph did.
That's true.
So the first thing you notice, even before you're zoomed in, is I might feed some Twitter information, but I'll just describe it first. It appears to have been shaved off a larger piece of metal, which is not really new information for the rest. To you it is. And it's clearly an alloy of sorts. But on the surface, you don't really see any mixing, so to say. That only happens when you start zooming in, and not the first layer, not the second layer, but like the 10th, 20th layer. It's been alloyed on a molecular level almost. Given a bit of time, you could probably work out the formulas of the specific metals that have been used. And you have a database of those as well. That's the first layer of information you get from just a visual, just a visual inspection.
Any biomaterial residual on it?
No. Well, there's. Did you guys clean it? I don't think so, right?
No, it was lightly clean.
Yeah, Kipkin kind of got it removed and cleaned up to take a good look at it, I think.
Yeah. So
you ran it through a spectrometer equivalent on the ship, but not a good one.
Yeah, there's no biomaterial on it. And it's one thing you also notice, it's not fused with any what's the word? Living materials.
Okay.
Though the way the different metals are fused, it's is not something that can be achieved by fabrication.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, and they're now specifically accessing the autopsy report from which this liver was removed. It would be wonderful to see one of these things in situ, as it were, within the body, how it affects them.
Inquisitor, a word, if I may.
Certainly.
And they're just kind of mumbling to themselves at this point.
Yeah.
Bursts of static.
Do you try to hack into the ship's databanks, or are you going to ask for the autopsy?
If it's not among the readily available records that they would have access to.
No, I would assume Kifkin hadn't entered the autopsy into any public record at all.
No, it's sealed on one mobile data pad, and then the ship's primary cogitator are the only two places where the autopsy is located.
Then yeah, it all of a sudden looks. I'd like access to that autopsy report, please.
That's going to take time because those are sealed records.
Yes, well, I'm a janitor, and you've brought this interesting thing to me. I need those records since you've cleaned it of all biomaterial.
What relevance could the biomaterial have?
Because it is metal fused with flesh.
It's actually specifically not fused.
Well, not fused with... Yeah.
But let's switch that around. It's the autopsy might explain how it fused with the flesh.
Right. There's
Well,
no system.
I performed the autopsy myself. The individual in question was primarily human. The only signs that the metal did anything on a biological level was the discoloration.
Are you sure of that?
I'm fairly certain, considering that almost everything was within the discernible realms. Again, anatomy had not changed in any way, shape, or form outside of varying norms. The individual in question definitely served time on Thilhunum 3, which explains a number of the bit of scoring that was found within the lungs, as well as worked as an industrial laborer, which explained a number of the scars elsewhere on the body. The primary things to note with the individual in question, aside from the purple hue, was their just absolute fanaticism and being a heretic.
Yes, and so you examined the brain and...
Oh, I even weighed it and poked and prodded. No, I was quite thorough. The primary thing of just weirdness was that this was embedded in between C3 and C4.
Actually into the nervous system,
Yes.
so that it was constantly bathed within the fluid of the nervous system.
Yeah.
Mm. And the chemical analysis of the spinal fluid?
Didn't really find anything. The metal in question had not degraded one bit. It seemed to maintain being completely intact. No,
Not the metal, the fluid.
the fluid showed no traces of anything out of the ordinary. Everything was within variance. Again, the only thing that seems to have happened with the physical signs from the body in question was the purple hue. Now, if the metal embedded did anything on a psychological level, physical analysis of gray matter tissues as well as fluids turned back nothing.
Interesting. They poke and prod a little bit more. It seemed to be a conduit of some kind.
Well, that might explain why Joseph threw himself into the vat of acid.
Indeed. Was he holding it?
He was analyzing it, he was in contact with it, and the last thing he did before throwing himself to his death was doing an electronic analysis of its conductivity.
A conduit. Yes. Interesting. I'll need that whole artifact. Sooner rather than later.
Well, it's currently being processed. Our servitors aren't known for being, quick. They're meant for being durable. And considering it was in the vault, it's going to be a number of hours, if not a day, before it makes planetfall.
Very well. I just have to see what I can do with this. And they're going to continue examining it. The tools are going to start coming out, samples taken, almost like almost like a core sample, going through the layers, and whatever tests they have at their disposal. Going to run them all.
Okay.
And then and while one of the servitors is researching all of this information on the databases, trying to find matches as the answers come up.
So that
Inquisitor?
work, Matilda? Yes.
Perhaps outside.
Yes.
Vasily looks kind of awkwardly, like asking, can you not leave me here alone? With his eyes just kind of...
And he
looking
just
at the both of you.
eyes Vasily, and it has like that sort of, like, for the first time in a long time, a wicked, almost gleeful gleam to his eye as he just leaves you here.
He just sort of
That sort of-
stews in that.
It's a similar wicked, gleeful gleam that Matilda used to give you as she sent you off to something awful.
He's just going to just repeat in, like, as many thoughts of the day that he has memorized, he's just going to repeat all of them.
Mm. All right.
There's one of them being, there is no cowardice in faith. There is no cowardice in faith, and he's just sort of like stock still in the corner. Please tell me Donnie at least stays behind. Oh, come on.
Well, someone's got to escort the artifact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Someone should probably keep an eye on Vasily and the artifact.
Do you trust me?
No, I mean the actual helmet when transport. It's got to be escorted, right?
Bringing the helmet here.
No.
Just you wait till I finish talking to Kipkin about this. We're not bringing the helmet here.
All right. So you leave Vasily behind then? Here?
Yeah. We walk out and leave Vasily behind with the janitor and all the servo skulls.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then now the details of the rest of the investigation into the sliver, I will get those to you for the next session, Cleric. So
Okay.
you have like a full-on report. But the main question is, do you let her investigate the helmet as well? Because then I will add that investigation to it. And to get to that point, Matilda and Kipkin can have a discussion about it.
Yes, you wanted to say something. I'm guessing you scanned the janitor.
I had a look into that mind. It is curious and dangerous. It does not know what it is looking at, while it does know all too well what it is looking at.
How often have you interacted with Mechanicus?
On occasion.
The best of them ride a line between wanting to know more and knowing better than trying to know more. A curious mind might actually hold an answer to this thing. However, a curious mind might also try and do something supremely stupid with this thing. That is why I left
put
Vasily
into
behind.
one of her little pets.
Yes,
Their little pets.
precisely. But fortunately, it seems just by scanning the room, most of their little pets are just that, little. But I made certain to leave the one that had the area control denial weapon back in the room. One of the major reasons why I want to sit down with the Magi of this planet is usually one Magi is left that is part of a particular group. The Mechanicus have their own secret police. It's not highly well known. But usually one of the Magi that are on a planet are part of this secret police. And finding them out and being able to discuss with them what their findings are and policing has been of their own people will be most vital. I would like to janitor at least to get a look at the helmet, poke and prod, and then reveal themselves to be a heretic, in which case you and Vasily get to have batting practice. Otherwise, they might actually prove to be somewhat useful. In which case...
I would like to suggest, Kifkin, that I respect your extensive knowledge in this area, but perhaps the janitor would do better in isolation, rather than taint the entire hive with their connections. Perhaps they can expect the helmet aboard the ship, rather than us remove such an artifact here. I have concerns also about transporting it.
All right. I already know that they're going to complain at length that they're not going to have the proper tools.
Well, at least someone will be able to join Vasily in the chorus of complaining.
However, you do make an excellent point, and I can quite easily, takes out a data pad, engineer an industrial-grade accident aboard our vessel. As just pulls out a data pad and has one of the servitors that was sent to get the package self-destruct in a corridor that's reinforced. There we go. Clean up on aisle 7. So we cannot move it, and right now it must be quarantined until the quarantine protocols aboard the Emperor's Son have been saw fit. So if they want to analyze the helmet, they're going to have to come aboard.
Thank you.
All right.
You're doing very well.
We'll see. First, I am going to have to deliver the bad news to our ultimately curious individual, and then have tea with someone who doesn't drink tea. All right. Let's go back in, shall we?
She's gonna glance down. I imagine we have like a watch equivalent, like a Fitbit from 40K universe.
Yeah,
she'll glance
chrono.
Yes, she'll glance at her chrono and she'll be like, "Let's give them another minute."
You delight too much in his petty misery. I already certain that he is either just humming mantras in his own mind, staring at whatever the janitor is doing that's creeping him out, or he has poked something, in which case we have all of a few seconds before he loses a finger.
Yes, but we also have all of a few seconds before the janitor does something questionable as well, and I'd rather them both be in a room and deal with it themselves, and then we can clean up the mess on aisle 8.
Why will you deny me the simple pleasures? As he just moves without even thinking back into the room.
And there's been a servo skull that has literally scanned Vasily from head to toe, and has done pretty much every MRI in-depth scanning of them, and is printing out a report of diet improvements, exercise suggestions, among other things, and as well as recommended surgical upgrades.
Does Kifkin, does Vasily have any upgrades currently, like implants or replacements?
Implants or replacements? No, he's still kicking with every biological bit.
That's going to be a long list.
Yep.
Probably starting with the leg that nearly got blown off twice.
Yeah. The suggestion of an embedded flamer.
I just want to give some ASMR to our viewership. Is I'm just hearing the sound of those old like dot printers just going back and forth as it's printing out this exhaustive list of upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I would say Vasily is actually using that as kind of a metronome and tapping his fingers on the pommel of the chain sword to an old Vestroyan war hymn that he used to sing.
It's well, along with the mechanical bionic upgrades are suggestions of perhaps having an ore cart implanted for the increased capability. Various Xeno biological upgrades that might increase like lung power, heart.
No thanks. All good.
It's just listed in the list. It's just in the list.
Yeah, well, and as Vasily stands there in terror, Kishkin and Matilda come back with Donnie.
It's shifted to sort of a stalwart nature, so he's not afraid at the minute, but he's aware.
Coming into the printer, just head cocks slightly at it for a moment. Then looks to Vasily, sees him standing more at attention, and then over to the janitor. I am sorry, janitor, but there seems to have been an industrial accident, and the Emperor's son is currently on quarantine, so it's going to be a while before that helmet can come down. Now, if you do want to analyze it in your curiosity at the craft view, you are welcome to come back with us aboard the Emperor's son.
Oh, yes, of course. Curious one, that printouts for you. Please let me know if that's anything that you would like to have taken care of for you. I will need a few hours to pack up some gear.
Oh, by all means, take your time. I have to go and speak with the local magi as to the nature and disposition of this facility.
Of course. Do enjoy. As I said, interesting.
There's readouts coming in a language the rest can't read on some of the machinery it's been using.
It's probably all in technolingua.
Yeah. Vasily is gonna walk around them and grab the paper and like look at the absurd comments on it, and he's just gonna.
Does all the cases have a temper complication by chance?
More of a not so much a temper as an absence of awareness of others' tempers and emotions. It just goes right past.
Okay.
Absolutely unaware. He's in being able to read machines and things like that. He's lost the ability to read faces or body language.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you got the readout, right?
Yep.
So
yes.
It's up to you what and when to do something with that.
As he gets the readout, he's just gonna he's gonna go. Have you been to Safe recently?
Not personally, no.
Inquisitor, has your ship been to Safe?
No, we have not.
Interesting.
Why?
Well, that's where this specific alloy is located.
I knew it was going to involve the freaking greenskins. I just knew it.
I do hope so. Use more material.
You see kind of a wicked smile come across Vasily's face as he just crumples up the readout and stuffs it in his pocket.
Okay. So, good to know. You can tell us the origin of the helmet in a few hours. First, I have to put myself together and talk with people who primarily just beep and whir. So
I will have a full readout for you if it will help shortly. And there's already a servo scanning the Inquisitor.
That fabulous. But I will read that at my leisure later. First,
course.
by all means, janitor, gather your instruments. Vasily, if you would be so gracious as to escort the janitor aboard our vessel, well, at least the transport, because I will pilot it back up. Don't want anything to happen in the interim. And as for the two of you, you can join me as we go have tea in what disguises itself as crumpets with the Magi here in a few moments. Thank you, janitor, for your time and for your efforts.
Certainly. Thank you for bringing me this most interesting item. I have not felt. No, felt. Felt's not the right word. What
Processed.
would it be? Is curiosity a feeling? I cannot remember.
It
I'm
is
fascinated.
fascinated is within the emotional texts, yes. That being said, before I leave your side, janitor, what can you tell me more about this frontier world, aside from it being assaulted on a regular basis by greenskins?
Well, it seems to contain metal copper. I would say it's
Extensive.
most likely a mining world, or has the potential to become one once those biologicals are taken care of.
Just cocks his head at the term biologicals for a moment and then just goes, oh yeah, copper reserves, that would definitely be of interest and need. Okay, that's why it hasn't been abandoned or glassed yet. Good to know. Again, thank you for your time and your knowledge, janitor.
Yes. I look forward
Vasily,
to more.
do mind your hands and help the janitor with transport of whatever devices they need for their analysis.
Oh, of course, my good Inquisitor. I will be most surely attentive of my presence in this space.
I am so happy for you. The conversations you'll have will be most engrossing. And then just turns and leaves.
Matilda will follow with a quirk of her eyebrow at Vasily as if to say, "Don't you miss me now?" And will follow Kipkin. If one of the servitors comes too close to attempt to start scanning her, she'll literally turn to it, her eyes dark as lightning, she just says, "No."
Fascinating. Did you have that upgrade done yourself?
Matilda
She's from,
thinks.
and you just hear over the shoulder as Kifkin remembers some of the background he wrote. Oh, no, her parents are originally from the Death World, Dusk. It's a common biological variance.
Ah. Is it an upgrade or a mutation?
Undetermined by the janitor courts within the Calixis.
More pertinent, it's none of your concern.
Oh, it's all is of my concern. Given what you've told me of the effect of this sliver.
Vasily's moving his hand to the actual handle and just grasping it.
I don't think you'll need that. Save it for the pirates. Oh, we will find ourselves unsafe. I must take a look at these deposits.
Stoic silence until such time as somebody talks.
It might be Donnie saying, it's time to go. Okay. Which would be a perfect time to wrap up the bit of roleplay for today, I think.
Yes.
Where I think, if I have it correct, we're planning on next week having an investigation of the helmet as the starting point. And we still have some time, and we had one more item on the list for session 0, and that is give me and the viewers a bit of an idea where you would love imagine the story to go, and how you would see your character developing in there. Starting with Matilda. Just let's do the round, and then we do the reverse round for the wrap-up.
I think I'm very interested to see how the dynamics change between Matilda and the two pre-existing, well, I guess 3 existing members of the team, and the integration of this new janitor who is an adjustment, I think, for these people who we do know are very kind of habitual and just about used to each other. I'm very excited to obviously push on with the exploration with the sliver and figuring out that mystery. But I think Matilda at this point is more along for the ride, and I think it's going to be interesting to see when we hit a point where she forgets she's not the boss. Or at least, well, in her head she's still the boss, but she forgets that she's not meant to be pretending or acting like the boss and letting Kipkin kind of lead the show. Because we do have old habits and they do die hard. Mm-hmm. But for now, she's quite happy to play along as the assisting retinue member. And I'm very excited at the idea of that we get to go and fight with orcs, because wag!
Well, if you want a wag, you might get a wag, but well. Depends on how deep you probe into their territory, right?
I mean, my mind can scour an entire planet. Be fine.
With no risk at all, right?
No risk. Never goes wrong when I do crazy stuff like that. I'm super excited.
His head.
We could just cut off the Genesis head and just throw it and just see what it picks up on this way through.
I think that wouldn't matter. The rest of the body would still continue to calculate.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
Just one of the servo skulls would come over and just detach itself and keep going.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm excited for the adventure of this season, I think. See how the relationships develop and change.
Yeah, then let's go over to Jason.
Oh boy. Yeah, that'll be a severe adjustment. A lot of, because I made Vasily not a coward and very fastidious in his beliefs, that's going to grate on the janitor. I just feel it. So watching that tension break, at least from Vasily's side, will be very interesting, because there's this cold, curious logic versus this very passionate and maybe not so bright sort of passion that Vasily has. And even in terms of the dynamics, I don't think that authority is either inherent to Vasily or adhered to by Vasily in times of war. So if ever we actually encounter greenskins, you may see that old soldier in him kind of leap to the forefront, and I would compare it to the sort of him killing Cornelius, or trying to, and just sort of hacking at it madly. Like, that'll be interesting to see again if ever that happens. No more sneaking around.
All right. Then, Clerk of Court.
I do miss Safenya. I do. But, yeah. but she, Jason and I talked months ago, and I remember telling him Stefania was either going to go out a martyr, or she was going to take a whole bunch of people with her, or she was going to snap and just everything would be a target. And yeah, she went out the best way she could have. But I'm very excited for the janitor. Albacasis, I'm excited to explore more of not just who he is, but how, or who they are, but how they became this way. There is a history to them. And I think that history is might come into play a little bit, but yes, somebody who doesn't view the world the way the others do. Knowledge is knowledge. It is neither, it can be heretical, but that determination is not as cut and dried as I think the others believe it to be, at least for other cases.
All right. Then, last of this round, Kivkin.
Oh boy. Definitely looking forward to seeing how Kivkin finds his inquisitorial style, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is not used to having this much authority or power, and is still reeling from Thalanum. And I think it's going to be a while before he settles into his new set of habits, because he is a creature of habit, but right now everything's in flux. So he's a bit more cantankerous and not entirely on his A game. Also, I would love to see just this group have to deal with green skins, where nothing makes sense. Like, how does this empty paint can fire 50 caliber rounds? How does that even? But also another thing that I'm deeply looking forward to is just because I have this feeling of tension with this entire group of when someone's going to just snap. Just like something goes wrong. And there is just this deep-seated combination of fear and glee for when that moment happens. And that is what I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely imagine that. Well, I'm also looking forward to where you're taking it, because just like before, while there is clues to find, there's clues to find everywhere. So no matter where you look, you're gonna find something, and it's up to you to decide a course. You can take the easiest course, or you can go another route. Whatever comes up in with you all. That hasn't changed. So if you go down to what was it again? Scythe? Yeah, the other way around. Scythe. Yep, it's a clean course, but there's probably some other clues that's going to come up from the helmet, and so I really love that style of investigation. Or you can ignore it and fly off to another sector if you want, and I'll come up with something else. But we'll see. But then you neglected the Emperor's duty, which is something to always keep in mind. So to wrap today up, we'll do the regular round of if you enjoyed today, and where can we find you online. So this time we go the same route, but the other way around, starting with Pope.
Hey, it's Pope World Build here. You can find me with that name on the Twitter, World Build here on the Twitch. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, you can find me over on Role Players, playing Warren, a very different and far more southern character in The Long March as it continues. Otherwise, you can find me all over on Twitch, lurking and talking in so many different shows, chats. I look forward to seeing a bunch of people over on Tales from the Grim this evening for Bad Moon Rising. And if you haven't been catching it, I deeply suggest going and seeing RPG Webby's channel on Thursdays for After the Fire, where you'll get to see two of these wonderful people deal with some deep, deep, troubling political agendas. So I'll see you all next week, and I'll probably see you a little earlier beforehand somewhere here on the Twitchverse.
All right. Next up, Cleric.
Hi. I'm at Cat. I'm at Cleric of Cord.
Cat.
I play D&D and I play TTRPGs on the internet. You can find me pretty much all over. Be back here Thursday for Deck of Many Worlds, where I'll be introducing a new PC. It's going to be interesting, given that my little rogue Pepper didn't survive the last encounter. And then right after that, hopefully, if all goes well, we will be back with session 2 of our mini campaign and Nibiru. Great sci-fi dystopian. Love it. It's fascinating. Fridays, 2 p.m. Eastern, we are back here for Greyhawk, Basilica of the Cudgel. So much fun. Oh, I love it. And my little halfling paladin, my first paladin, and she's just so much fun. I play games Tuesday night on Madbird Streams in an All Evil campaign, and again on Sunday nights with the Arcana Code. So check out the pinned tweet on Twitter on my page, and that's where you'll find me.
All right. Did you enjoy today?
I did.
Yes,
I really did. I enjoyed today. I've been spending a lot of time with albicasis in my head, trying to find that line of flesh and machine, and how much. And I'm looking forward to that, treading that line. How fine is it for them? But I enjoyed today.
All right. Then
All
next
right.
up is Jason.
Yeah. Loved today. It was a marvelous time. Good to be back. And in terms of social medias and whatnot, right there, just Jason Please on Twitter. And if you want to find out where I am, check the pin tweet. It's all there and all wonderful, as Pope World Build so graciously pointed out about After the Fire coming up on Thursday. Got stuff on Tuesday with Nerdsmith and with Susanna Grace. Just check the tweet, chuck a follow if you don't mind. And be kind to yourselves. Take care. Drink water. I don't know.
Maybe. All right.
Good advice.
Charlie.
I really enjoyed today. It's good to reconnect with each other as players and as characters and set some expectations and dive back into this. I was going to say world, but universe is probably a more apt label as we travel between planets. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. As for me, I'm at Frost and Fire on the Twitters and most other places. You can find me a whole host of places, including back here on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern when we play some Cult. Really cool system if you're into Cthulhu type things, if you liked Constantine. It's dark, it's gritty, there's angels, there's demons, we're making bad trades, and some of us have sold our souls. So That is coming up, and I'm very excited to get back into that this week. And also, yeah, just shout out to the Lost Girls podcast, which will be coming up in early July. We're busy working on that right now. If you like vampires in the 80s, where it's a cipher system game, follow us at New Vampsterdam, and that will be appearing on the Encounter Roleplay Network very soon. Keep an eye out for that. And thank you, chat, for being here and joining with us today. Again, if you're on YouTube, come and see us live. We're on the Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern slot, here and hanging out with this Mutants and Masterminds Warhammer 40k creation that the wonderful Bastian has come up with. And Bastian, how was it for you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed today. I really wanted to do the introduction in character rather than just saying, here you have, and something me and Kat talked about in between the seasons, how to implement that. And when she came up with the character, it was, okay, this is going to be the one that knows the shit about the stuff. And that's going to be really handy for me and another way to interact with all of you. Also got a few notes down for stuff to add, which if I hadn't already. Yeah, looking forward to next week. See where this rabbit hole goes, so to say. And really good to reconnect again. It's been busy weeks from me, some delays as well. Apologies for that. But catch us next week live if you're on YouTube. You can come interact. And for the rest of you next week as well. Anything we need to do to wrap up? Except wave, smile and wave.
I think that is it. Don't forget to come back later at around 6 p.m. Eastern when the next game will be coming up. It's going to be a good one. They're continuing their Learn to Play D&D with DM Corey and the crew. So be here for that. And keep an eye out for those tweets. Hit the retweets to try and unlock those tabletop loot dice giveaways. Check out all our sponsors. And I think that is it.
Yep. All right. Let's see you in a smile and wave.